This is my last opportunity to speak on Divine One. Next week, you got a real treat. Dr. Ronnie is going to come and close this message out. And you know that when he closes it out, it gets closed out. Proper, as my friend Lonnie would say, he does things proper. So this is my last opportunity, and I want to just reflect on some of what we talked about the last time that I spoke to you on this subject. I gave you some examples and some descriptions of what divine is, but we also talked a little bit about what divine is supposed to be, or who's supposed to be divine, if you will look at it that way. We mentioned that there are people in this human plane of life that have a designation that represents that they're supposed to exhibit a divine nature in their daily walk. We talked about the popes and the priests and the imams and the rabbis and the Jesus-loving, Bible-teaching, New Thought preachers who are supposed to always exude that divine power within them. We're supposed to reflect and exemplify the divine nature of God. Our goal when we get up every day and go about our business is to present a delightful persona and the excellence standard that Jesus set forth and was the example of for all of us. But I also mentioned that sometimes we fall a little short. Sometimes our humanness makes us fall short of the mark. And some of us fall real short, and our human condition keeps us from presenting a proper moral standard. And sometimes we're just not delightful to be around at all. But the good news is, there's always good news, and that's what gospel means, good news. The good news is what divine truly represents in the context that Revelation is presenting is it refers to a pure, perfect, whole, and complete universal description of all things that are from God, of God, and like God. And that includes all of us. That includes everyone in the picture. So because that original idea of perfection, that original concept that God had that became all of creation was a spiritual idea, not a physical presentation. The first chapter in Genesis describes God's spiritual divine idea of a physical manifestation that's not revealed until chapter 2. God, that ultimate divine one, that spiritual entity, gave us a perfect example, knowing that we may have those days where we don't live up to what we're supposed to be. He gave us an example of Jesus as that divine presence. That's something that reveals the truth and the spiritual nature of God as man. With that, he made certain that all of us, each and every one of you, knew that you were also divine, because he conceived you in the spiritual image and likeness of the divine one himself. So everyone here is and will always be a divine one. We are created as spiritual beings and given the opportunity to experience all of God's creation in a human form. Now, isn't that a blessing? That's a delight. That you can experience everything that God is right now as you are. But it takes a little work. It doesn't just happen. Because our humanness, our own will, our own desire, our fleshly nature, as Scripture says, kind of gets in the way. Why is this? Why is it that humans have such a hard time meeting divine expectations? You ever ask yourself that? Why? Alan did a great job when he was up here. We know what we're supposed to do. But let somebody cut you off on the freeway. Let somebody owe you some money for too long. Something happens where we forget That divine nature that God seated in every single one of us. And just like those people I mentioned earlier, those people of high religious designations, our humanness gets in our way. And the divine one that we're supposed to be, that spiritual divine one within you, gets shut down. Our job is to allow that spiritual vibration that God seated us all with to continue to move through us, no matter what conditions in life that we face. This spiritual substance, that true divine one within you, is something that can't be seen. But it can be demonstrated through your physical presence here on this plane of existence. You see, that spiritual thing is kind of like, when I spoke last week, I used this analogy, it's kind of like radio waves. A vibration is something that is always around us. You can't see it, but it's there. If you turn your radio on, you can turn it to any channel there is, and that channel will come in. What happens though if you're in the wrong place of consciousness? If you're driving underneath a freeway tunnel? If there's too many high electrical wires in the neighborhood, there's interference. You can't get the signal clearly. That's what happens to us as human beings. We drive through that freeway tunnel, we allow something that we have in our minds, something that's caused us a little discomfort, to block that signal from coming through. But that divine vibration is always present within you, just like that signal from every radio station is right here in this room. But until you tune in properly, until you move that dial, you're not going to get the station you desire. So it requires a movement of mind. It requires the acknowledgement of that spiritual truth within you for you to move that dial to the right channel at the right time, depending on the circumstance that you're in. You can't listen to jazz all the time. You definitely can't listen to hip-hop all the time. Every once in a while, when things are a little crazy, you might have to hear some classical music. So we have to continually shift, continually tune in to that divine vibration within us. Why? What does the vibration do? A vibration shakes you up. It moves stuff around. And in this context, what it does, it rearranges our ideas. That vibration is a movement of something that's fluid, something that's elastic, and even things that are solid. This podium appears to be solid. Those chairs you sit in appear to be solid. But if you look at them under the right microscope, you'll see that they're fluid. There is no such thing as hard stuff in God. Everything is spiritual. Everything is moving. Everything is solid. That appears solid is truly fluid. A vibration. That spiritual force that restores the equilibrium and harmony within our body. That's what the divine vibration does. It also doesn't just restore our bodies. It refers to how we think, how we perceive, and the feelings that we get. You know how some people walk into a room, and as soon as they walk into a room, the whole vibration changes. When you come into LA 3rd, I don't think you'd be here unless you had a good vibration when you enter the door. You know, every time Reverend Lisa walks in here, there's a good vibration that exudes from her. It's not just because she's tall and beautiful and attractive. It's because of what's inside her that vibration comes forth, and everybody smiles, everybody feels her warmth when she's present. Reverend Jerrold, not so much. But some folk got it, some folk got it. But what happens when one of our cousins from the parking lot or from the neighborhood, we don't get the same vibration. Our vibration changes. Why? Because we're focused on what we see. We haven't allowed that what we see to move out of the way so we can see that divine spiritual consciousness that has to be within each and every one of us. No one got more Jesus or more God than the other. Some of us acknowledge more God than the other. But we all have it present, so our job is to make sure that when we come into an atmosphere that doesn't look like we think it should look, before we pass judgment on an atmosphere, give an opportunity for that divine presence to come through. You just may make a friend. And more importantly, you just may help somebody. When that happens. That's right. We're all created by the same vibration. We all have the same spirit. But our humanness blinds us from our truth about others and even ourselves. God's original plan for us reveals our spiritual divine self and allows us to express it in this physical life. But that expression of that divine one has to be in how we act, not how we look. It's what we do that makes the difference. God says, as I've already discussed, His plan for us extends beyond this expression. That's why Reverend Lisa directed us, and that's why Alan was trying to give one away to chapter 23 in the Science of Mind textbook. That chapter talks about the reason why I still got the tennis shoes on, immortality. It talks about what happens when this expression is no longer in effect. And it's a subject that we just don't like to discuss. It's something that we don't necessarily look forward to. It's easy for us as individuals to say, Lord, thank you for waking me up this morning. We're blessed to have life. We're blessed to have breath. But the concept of being blessed without breath is hard for a lot of us to take in. But if God is all that we say He is, if life is all that we claim it to be, then that blessing doesn't stop when this expression is over. Does it? But we have a hard time like making that jump, as that said. We don't even prepare for that time. We don't prepare consciously. Some of us don't prepare financially. We don't prepare for that movement, but the movement is coming, y'all. It ain't gonna pass you by. So we have to do what we have to do to be ready for it. And I'm not saying don't be happy about this existence. I'm having a good time. I don't know about you. And plan to have a greater time. But at the same time, I know that my greatest time is not going to be here. It's going to be someplace else. And that's what that chapter 23 talks about. When this life on earth, when this physical expression doesn't give you all that you want, doesn't provide you with all that you expect or need, we need to turn our focus away from the part of this life that we can see to the unseen spiritual vibration that we can't see. Because it's that shift in our consciousness and the knowing of that external existence requires us to have an understanding of our eternal spiritual self. It's only the everlasting divine presence of God that's going to fix your temporary situation here on earth. That's the only thing that's going to help you. Your unhappiness, and we've talked about this in other lessons, your unhappiness and your happiness is directly connected to how much of the divine one, how much of that spiritual vibration of God you choose to recognize, unify with, and unite with. How much of your immortal self are you going to allow to control your mortal thoughts and actions? Our goal every day is to wake up and be happy. There's nobody in here that got up this morning with the goal of being unhappy or being disappointed. You didn't leave home waiting for somebody to steal something from you. You got up this morning thinking you was going to acquire some things if it wasn't nothing but a gesture of love from somebody else. Ernest Holmes says this. He says, some suffer and some are happy, according to the way they contact life. No one judges us but ourselves, and no one gives to us but ourselves, and no one robs us but ourselves. It's all about your perspective and your perception. That's what makes you happy or unhappy. Your experiences have nothing to do with you being happy or sad. But your view of them, your feeling about them, and your attitude towards them, that's what determines whether you're happy or sad. When we focus and we have an understanding and wisdom gained because of those experiences, then every single one of them is a great experience. Yes, I said every experience is a great experience, including that inevitable spiritual elevator ride to the top of consciousness. It's an ever-expanding destination. Most times when you get on an elevator, it only goes so far because it's enclosed in a physical structure. The elevator I'm talking about is one that just keeps rising. There's nothing to keep it from going further and further and further. But it will let you off. It's going to let you off at the floor of your consciousness. That divine spiritual experience that you have, how divine that experience is determined by how you're living right now. What are you doing right now? How are you thinking? How are you living? How are you treating your fellow man right now? That determines how far that first escalator ride is going to be. You're going to get off. And whatever you don't get right in this expression, you're going to have another opportunity to get it right. And then you're going to get right back on that elevator and you're going to rise a little higher. And you're going to have another opportunity to get it right. A person with good character. I know all of you have good character here. A person of good character intuitively knows what's right and what's wrong. He remembers his triumphs. He also remembers his mistakes, and he uses the wisdom gained from those opportunities to envision a brighter future, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. But someone with a lesser character, all they're thinking about is their own self-gratification. What's right for them, or what's right is only what's right for them right now. That's all they're concerned about. But we have, and I can understand some of the things that I've read in Scripture before when they like in Revelations, I think it's 14, where they say only 144,000 are going to get in heaven. You know, if you think about it, it's small. It's small. There's a whole lot of people, a whole lot of good Christians out here, a whole lot of people going to church and doing the right thing. So that 144,000 was always a puzzle to me. But if you have that idea that you only get this one opportunity to get it right, and after that you don't get another one, then maybe only 140,000 will get it. Because very few of us are going to get it all done and all perfect in this expression. Amen. You see, in Scripture, when it says that, it's talking about a unity of spirit and a divine nature. It's talking about letting go of your human will and being redeemed by Jesus. Those are the people who are going to get in. It's not talking about necessarily a fixed number of people. It's talking about those people who really get it, those people who make the connection to the universal Christ. Those are the people that will make it in to this levels of expression that are yet to come. You know, these levels of expression, they remind me of the Mormon faith. Some of you may not have a lot of knowledge about the Church of Latter-day Saints. I happen to have an opportunity to speak in one at one point, and I know that, and you know, I believe that all religions are worthy and worthwhile. So I have nothing against our brothers of the Church of Latter-day Saints. But they truly believe, because of a little understanding of Scripture, that there are levels of heaven. You know, everybody don't end up in the same place at the same time. So if you think about what I'm saying, that you continue to move, and you can kind of see where, you know, that can happen. So in these levels of heaven that they're talking about, there are 3 levels that they talk about. And that level at the top is the celestial level. And that means that your name, as it says in Scripture, is written in the book of heaven. That means that you've made a perfect connection with the Christ. And you become one of those celestial bodies that will be glorified by the Son forever. The second level, that middle level, which is probably where most of y'all are, it means that your name, that you live a very respectful life. But your physical desires sometimes get in the way. So you reflect, you know, I should say, you reject that full gospel all the time. You're good in church. You're good most of the time. You're not a bad guy. You're an angel. You even got a nickname, Angel Raphael. Which designates that you're always trying to help somebody. You're always trying to lift somebody up, which he does, and he does it very well. But there are times or occasions where there's a misstep. There are times when you forget your true divine self. Those are the people that they're talking about at the terrestrial level as seeking that divine presence. And then there's the last level, or the lower level, which is a celestial level, which is everyone in here has the potential to receive Christ. But we're still in that development mode, and we're still spending most of our time doing what we want to do and what feels good, and not taking anyone else into consideration. They base this trilogy of entry based on 1 Corinthians 15, verse 41, where it says there's a celestial sun, there's a terrestrial moon, and there's a celestial stars. And that's how they got to that theory. But as I said, I had an opportunity to speak at a Mormon temple. My goal as a minister is to speak in every denomination that's out there. A friend of mine's mom passed, and she was one of those people that was what they call high yellow, and was kind of passing out there 1,000 oaks. She joined this Mormon church. And Debbie asked could I do the service, and to our surprise, they said fine. So I do this service, and after the service, they surround me. They all grab me, they take me back to this little room, and they give me all their literature. Because, you know, they got to move now to recruit y'all. Y'all know that. They give me all this literature. We can use you. You just what we need. You know. So I, you know, being gracious and take my stuff, and I go home and I look at it a little bit, and I says, I said, they are now, I looked at the website, and the website had none of the black people on the cover. I looked and I said, oh, they must be getting, they're making a change here. But as I read further, I saw, well, we were accepted. We could join the church, and we won't have it. But we can only go to that last level. I said, this ain't looking good for me. However, look, don't take offense, because I did. They are reading the same scripture I'm reading. They're just taking a literal view of that scripture. And they believe that if you are dark, you're descendants of Ham, and you curse you. And it's not your fault. You know what I mean? There's nothing you can do about it, but you just can't get in. It's that simple. Me personally, I don't believe that the power and presence of God has any limitations. I don't believe that there's a final destination for any of us. I told you your intuitive knowing and your telepathic senses will always live forever. But what I do believe that the grades you get, the character you display here, determines the next expression that you are offering. A person of good character intuitively knows the right thing. But that person of lesser character, they're only considering what's good for them right now. So if you accept the universal Christ nature as your own Christ, as your own nature, if you have a faith and believe in a universal law defined by your thoughts, your words, and actions of the divine one, if our application of those principles that represent Jesus is what we put forth in our life, then we are certain to be in that 144,000. Now that's not a finite number. That 144,000 represents a spiritual consciousness that understands and demonstrates the divinity of the Christ in all of man. So don't panic, you all are going to get in. It's just a matter of when. But first, we have to establish a oneness with God in our earthly existence. We have to get right with ourselves right now. We must allow the divine vibration of Christ and that presence to change our heart, change our mind, and change our soul. Our faith must be steadfast in our inseparable connection with the Father. My dad gave me a great book called God's Divine Promise by Emmanuel Sweetwater. And he has a note in his book, and it's entitled Divine and the Human in the Lord. And it reads this way. It says, the right faith that we believe and confess that our Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is God and man. God of the substance of the Father, begotten before the world, and man as the substance of the mother, born into the world. Perfect God and perfect man consist of a rational soul and a human body, equal to the Father as to the divine, and inferior to the Father as to the human, who, although he is God and man, yet they are not two, but one Christ. One altogether by unity of person, since the rational soul and the body are one man. So is God and man one Christ. What Swedenborg is telling us is that if we're going to have faith in something, if we're going to believe in anything, maintain your faith and speak your belief that Jesus the Christ is the perfect union of God and man. The idea of God before the manifestation of this physical world. He was conceived in mind as the purity of man, conceived out of love, compassion, and understanding. That perfect God must produce the content of our subconscious soul, and we must express it in our human form. When we express the Spirit of the Father as the divine one, is when we're not expressing that human will, which is less than divine. Christ is God and man, yet it is one principle. The soul can't produce without the body, and the body has no life without the soul. God, man, and Christ represents the divine one, but it's made manifest through all of you and through all things. In truth, there's only one thing. There's only God. There's only one power. That is all that there is. 2 Peter gives us that same idea, but in a little different way. Simon Peter, servant apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who through the righteousness of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ have made equal with us in the precious faith. Grace and peace be multiplied to you through the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has given us all things pertaining to the power of God, for life and worship of God, through the knowledge of him who has called us by his glory and his excellence, whereby are given us exceedingly great and precious gifts, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust, through that physical will. The right faith reacts to the will of a divine principle. The right use of the law will become one in Christ in our faith. The more the Christ nature is possessed within us, the more grace and experience, more grace and peace you will experience.
Yeah.
When you accept Christ, it gives you access to all the power of God. It enhances your life and your attraction to his excellence. It makes you want to do right. It makes you want to do the right thing. If you keep your mind, as the preacher used to say in my church, if you keep your mind stayed on Jesus, you're going to experience an abundant blessing, all the promises of God, and in particularly the promise of immortality. When you embrace and demonstrate your divine nature, you will break away from the physical desires that mask your spiritual truth. Christ is the only begotten, pure idea of God. Christ is the principle of man in God. Christ is the individual expression of God represented by Jesus. Christ represents your higher self that saves you from ignorance, sickness, and death. The personification of your spiritual mind and body is represented by Christ. Christ is the movement of mind that awakens our faith. Christ is the celestial light that guides us safely through our worldly experiences. Christ is the divine vibration that restores eternal life. That divine spiritual expression. I use the term vibration because vibration shakes things up. You have to shake things up. It shakes you up, and it causes a shift in your thinking. And when it causes a shift in your thinking, it clears your mind. It shakes you up. It causes a balance to be brought between your organs. And when your organs are in balance, it heals your body. It shakes you up. It causes a trembling of love in your heart. And when you have a trembling of love in your heart, it purifies your soul. It shakes you up. It causes the wind to blow beneath your feet. And when you feel that wind blowing through your persona, it gives you a sense of forgiveness and peace. And it ensures your immortality. You see, God initiates the divine vibration. Jesus demonstrates the divine vibration. But it's up to you and me to activate our divine vibration.
Yeah.
You are the divine ones.
Yeah.
You are immortal. But there's something that you need to do to make certain that you're expressing that Christ's presence within you.
Yeah.
Something you need to do, like make sure that unconditional love is all that you express. Make sure that everybody that owes you money, everybody that did you wrong, everybody that took something from you is totally forgiven. Make sure that every day you get up, you do something to secure yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Yeah.
And after you take care of why, do the exact same thing for someone else. Make sure that when you speak your words spoken are sincere.
Yeah.
Make sure that whatever abundance God has bestowed on you, that you take the opportunity to share it with others.
Yeah.
Make sure that no matter what happens in the external expression of life, no matter what it looks like, that you walk by faith and have no fear that whatever's on the other side, whatever God has for you, you will receive and you're going to get it right on time.
Amen.
Oh, that's the stuff you got to do. Because you are the divine one. But sometimes you got to get yourself out of the way. Otherwise, you're going to miss something. Otherwise, you're going to be so caught up into getting them back, it ain't going to get you forward. You are the divine one. You are it. You have the ability to express the divinity of Christ that was seated in you from the very beginning.
Yeah.
All I got to say is the same thing Jim Brown said to Richard Pryor.